All right, so we're diving into The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt,
Yeah.
a book exploring the whole teen mental health crisis. And, it's got some pretty strong opinions about smartphones and social media and their effect on kids.
Definitely strong opinions. Some people love it.
Right.
Some hate it.
Some find it insightful. Some think it's a little lacking in the scientific rigor department.
Right.
But,
right.
Is it worth reading? That's what we're here to figure out.
I think so. This is for like parents, educators, or really anyone who's interacting with teenagers, in this whole digital age that we live in.
Right.
We're going to break down all the arguments, and weigh all the criticisms and ultimately help you decide if this book is really worth your time.
Exactly. So we've got a stack of reviews, articles,
Yeah.
even some background info on Haidt himself.
Right. We'll see what we can uncover.
Yeah, so first things first, who is this Jonathan Haidt guy?
So, he's a pretty big name in psychology. He's a social psychologist and a professor at NYU's Stern School of Business.
Okay.
And he's kind of known for tackling these like controversial topics. He wrote
Yeah.
The Righteous Mind, which is all about morality and political psychology.
Okay, yeah.
And then he also wrote The Coddling of the American Mind, which, tackles like those campus culture wars.
Right, so he's not afraid of,
Not afraid of a
a
debate.
bit of a hot topic.
Exactly. He jumps right up.
In The Anxious Generation, what is his main argument?
So basically, he's saying that there's this like connection between, the explosion of teen depression, anxiety, self-harm, suicide rates,
Yeah.
all of that stuff since the early 2010s,
Yeah.
and the boom of, smartphones, of social media.
Right, because they kind of happened at the same time.
Exactly, at the same time.
So it's
Correlation.
I think a lot of people would suspect that those two things are related.
Yeah.
But what is different about Haidt's take on this?
Well, it's not just like a technology's bad and that's why kids are sad kind of thing.
Okay.
He actually dives deeper. Like he
Okay.
looks at parenting styles, he looks at societal shifts, and he really pushes for a more holistic approach to raising kids in this whole digital world.
So it's more nuanced than just
Much more nuanced, like
get off your phones.
Yeah.
It's more complex than that.
much more complex.
Yeah, okay, so what are some of the key arguments and
Oh,
evidence
it's so
that he uses to kind of support his case?
He presents a lot of data showing a really sharp rise in teen mental health issues. And the timing of it really aligns with this rise of smartphones and social media.
Right.
His argument is basically that social media has this constant pressure to compare yourself at others, and it's got those addictive qualities, and
Yeah.
it really impacts sleep and real-life social interaction.
Yeah.
And all of those things contribute to this spike in anxiety, depression.
Okay, so it's not just the content
No,
of social media, it's also like the
way it's designed,
how it affects our
or
behavior.
way it's used.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, is he just saying that technology is all bad? Like, are there any positives that he mentions?
Well, he does say that technology can be valuable.
Okay.
It can be a tool for learning, for creativity,
Sure.
for connection. He's not trying to demonize technology,
Okay.
but he wants people to promote a more like balanced and mindful approach to it,
Especially when it comes to young people.
especially for young people.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the other big ideas that he explores? You mentioned parenting styles earlier.
Yeah.
What's his take on that?
So he talks about helicopter parenting,
Okay.
which is where, parents are like super protective of their
Right.
kids in the real world, but
Okay.
then online they're totally underprotected.
Right.
So it's like this weird paradox where they don't have the freedom to, explore and learn from real world experiences. But then they're just like thrown into this wild west of the internet
With no guidance.
with no tools, no
that's a
guides.
recipe for disaster.
Exactly. And he argues that this is a big part of the mental health crisis.
Okay.
He says kids need those real world experiences,
Yeah.
even if they're messy,
Right.
even if they're uncomfortable.
Like they have to learn how to.
They need to learn how to deal with things
Yeah.
and to develop resilience and coping skills.
So I could see how that ties into the play-based childhood versus phone-based childhood that you
Yes.
mentioned earlier.
Exactly. So play-based childhood is all about, unstructured exploration,
Right.
social interaction,
Uh-huh.
and that's really crucial for developing those essential life skills.
Right.
And then you contrast that with phone-based childhood, where, kids are more likely to be isolated,
Right.
passively consuming content.
Right. And it's all curated, so they're not really.
It's a curated view of
Yeah.
the world. It's
Yeah.
not the real world.
It's not real life.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
But what does he say we should actually do about it? Is it all about taking away the phones?
Well, he does advocate for delaying smartphone access until age 16.
Okay, that's pretty extreme.
It sounds extreme, but his reasoning is interesting.
I mean, that seems kind of unrealistic in today's world.
Yeah.
So what's his reasoning?
He argues that a teenager's prefrontal cortex,
Okay.
which is the part of the brain that controls impulse control and decision-making,
Okay.
it's not fully developed until their mid-20s.
Wow.
So if you expose them to these addictive qualities of social media before that,
Yeah.
it can be detrimental.
So it's not about just protecting them from, like, the bad stuff online.
No.
It's about protecting their brains,
Protecting their brain.
the design of
The design of these platforms.
these platforms. Yeah.
Yes. He also advocates for more phone-free environments like schools
Okay.
to encourage that face-to-face interaction and reduce distractions.
Right.
And he emphasizes the importance of, unstructured playtime,
Yeah.
getting kids outdoors,
Right.
letting them explore, take risks in the real world.
But I can already hear parents saying, good luck with that. Yeah. Are we all supposed to become Luddites and just shun technology entirely?
No, it's about finding a balance.
Okay.
He's not anti-technology.
Yeah.
He's pro-childhood.
Okay.
He wants to see kids develop these, social and emotional skills
Right.
that are harder to come by in a purely digital world.
Right. And I think a lot of parents would agree with that.
Yes.
So how does this book compare to other works
Okay.
that are exploring similar themes? I'm thinking like The Shallows by Nicholas Carr
Yeah.
or Stolen Focus by Johann Hari.
Those are great comparisons. So The Shallows is about how the internet affects our brains,
Right.
like our ability to focus and think deeply.
Yeah.
But it's more about the cognitive impact on everybody, not just teens.
Okay.
And then Stolen Focus is a more recent one.
Yeah.
And that focuses on this decline of attention spans in this age of constant distraction.
Right.
Again, it's a broader theme.
It's not just about kids.
It's not just about kids.
Yeah. So where does the anxious generation fit in?
It kind of builds on those ideas
Okay.
by zeroing in on the vulnerability
Of children.
and adolescents.
Yeah.
He's saying that these developing brains
Right.
are so susceptible to the negative effects of all the
The screen time,
screen time, social media,
social media.
all those distractions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a crucial time.
Yeah. So he's not just saying that technology is bad for everybody. He's saying that it's particularly bad
Particularly bad for young people.
for young people.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand.
Yeah, it's like their brains are still developing and they're being bombarded with all this stimulation and all
Yeah.
these social pressures.
So are we just blaming technology for like
Well-
everything that's wrong with society?
He definitely points to technology as a major factor,
Okay.
but he doesn't totally let parents off the hook either.
Oh, really? Okay.
He talks about the need for what he calls digital parenting.
Digital parenting. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's like this idea that parents need to be just as involved in their kids' digital lives as they are in their real lives.
Oh, okay.
So they need to set boundaries,
Okay.
have open conversations about, online safety and
Right.
really model healthy tech habits themselves.
Okay. So it's kind of like leading by example.
Exactly.
But isn't that asking a lot of parents?
Yeah,
We're already juggling work and family and a
Yeah.
million other things.
it is.
And now we have to be like tech experts on top of it all.
I know it can feel overwhelming.
Right.
He does offer some pretty practical tips
Uh-huh.
that, don't require a degree in computer science.
Uh-huh.
Like really simple things like establishing tech-free zones in the home,
Okay.
having family dinners, without phones at the table,
Right.
setting clear limits on screen time.
Yeah, those are all good things. But what about like the tougher conversations? Like, how do you talk to your kids about
Yeah.
things like cyberbullying or pornography? I mean, those are kind of awkward to talk about.
He acknowledges that.
He's
He says those are really difficult conversations to have.
Right.
But he stresses the importance of starting early
Right.
and being open and non-judgmental.
Okay, so creating a safe space.
Creating a safe space
Yeah.
where kids can ask questions,
Right,
share their concerns without, being afraid of getting in trouble.
right. Because if they feel like they can talk to their parents about anything,
Exactly.
then they're more likely to come to them
Yeah.
if they do see something disturbing online.
Exactly. That's the goal.
Yeah, okay. So, and you were saying it's also important for parents to kind of model those healthy tech habits themselves.
Yes. Lead by example.
Right.
It's hard to tell your kid to get off their phone if you're always on yours.
Yeah, that's true. So it's really about, being proactive
It
and
is.
engaged.
It's about taking control of the technology in your family's life.
Right. Not just being reactive.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah. And using it in ways that benefit everybody.
So not just banning technology altogether,
No.
but just being more mindful about it.
More mindful, intentional.
Yeah. I think a lot of parents are probably struggling with that,
I think so.
finding that balance.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Okay. So speaking of people who have a lot of experience with technology,
Okay.
what about Bill Gates's perspective on this book?
Oh, yeah.
I know he wrote a pretty
thought-
glowing review.
He did. He called it a must-read for anyone who's, raising kids or working with young people.
Wow. Okay.
And it's funny because he actually shares some personal anecdotes about his own childhood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was surprisingly low tech.
That's interesting. I mean, you'd think the founder of Microsoft would have been like a computer whiz from day one.
But he really emphasizes the importance of what Haidt calls play-based childhood.
Yeah.
He spent a lot of time outdoors exploring, taking risks,
Okay.
just being a kid.
Yeah.
And he really believes that those experiences were so crucial to his success later on.
So even a tech giant like Bill Gates
Yeah,
is saying that there's value and
there's value in just playing,
unplugging and play.
Okay, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and he actually echoes Haidt's concerns about the impact of technology on like critical thinking and concentration.
Okay.
He worries that kids today are losing the ability to really focus deeply
Uh-huh.
because they're just constantly bombarded with distraction.
Right, like our brains are being rewired to just expect that constant stimulation.
Exactly. And that instant gratification.
Yeah, so it's hard to like
So it's hard to sit down and read a book
sit down and read a book
or
or
think through a problem.
yeah, think through a complex problem.
Yeah, because you just want to check your phone or see what's happening on social media.
Right. It's like we're training our brains to be distracted.
Yeah, and Gates is saying that that could have some pretty serious consequences down the road.
He's worried about it
Yeah.
for innovation and problem solving.
Right, so it's not just about kids' mental health. It's
No.
about the future
It's about the future of society.
of society. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
So we've got these big names like Jonathan Haidt and Bill Gates kind of sounding the alarm.
Yeah.
But what about the average reader? What are they saying about the book?
So, based on the reviews we've seen,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of resonance,
Mhm.
especially from parents.
Yeah.
They're seeing these trends in their own kids.
Uh-huh.
And this book really gives them a framework
Okay.
for understanding and addressing it.
So it's like validating their concerns.
It's validating. It's one thing to just kind of have a gut feeling that something's not right.
Right.
But it's another thing to have an expert like head
Yeah.
lay out all the research
And connect the dots.
and connect the dots. And this book provides a language for parents
Okay.
to talk about these issues
Yeah.
with their kids, with other parents,
right.
with schools and policymakers.
So it's not just a book. It's like
It's a conversation starter.
yeah.
It gets people talking.
But you said there were also some criticisms
Yeah.
from readers.
Some people found solutions a little unrealistic,
Okay.
especially the part about delaying smartphone access until 16.
Yeah.
They argue that it's just impossible to shield kids from technology completely.
Yeah, it's like, how do you do that in today's world?
Right.
Every kid has a phone.
It's like trying to hold back the tide.
Right.
But I think the conversation needs to shift from protection to preparation.
Okay.
We can't keep kids in a bubble.
Yeah.
But we can equip them with the skills and knowledge
Right.
to navigate the digital world safely and responsibly.
So it's about teaching them to be
critical thinkers, responsible digital citizens,
and not just like passive
not just past consumers
Oh,
of whatever pops up.
yeah. Okay.
We want them to be active participants
Right.
in their digital lives.
Okay. So I'm seeing how this book is more than just a parenting guide.
Yeah,
It's kind of a call to action
it is.
for all of us to rethink our relationship with technology.
And reclaim childhood.
Yeah, reclaim childhood for the next generation.
Right, exactly.
It's pretty powerful stuff.
It is. It's about reevaluating our priorities and
Yeah.
making sure that technology serves us, not the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so with all that said, how would you describe his writing style?
Okay.
Is this like a really academic book?
No, he's a really good writer.
Okay.
Very clear, very engaging.
Okay.
He avoids jargon.
Okay.
He uses everyday language that anyone can understand.
Uh-huh.
And he's really good at weaving in personal anecdotes and real-life examples.
Okay, so it's not just a dry textbook.
Not at all.
It's something that you could actually like sit down and enjoy.
Yes, definitely. It's thought-provoking, but it's also very readable.
Okay, good to know. I'm much more likely to pick up a book if I know I'm going to enjoy reading it.
Yeah.
So big picture,
Yeah.
does this book leave you feeling hopeful or depressed about the future?
It's a little bit of both, honestly.
Okay.
He doesn't sugarcoat the challenges, like he lays out all the risks,
Yeah.
but he also offers like a path forward, a way to reclaim childhood
Uh-huh.
and create a more balanced and humane relationship with technology.
Okay.
So it's a call to action, but it's also a message of hope.
I think that's what people need, right?
I think so.
Not just like a diagnosis of a problem, but some ideas of like, what can we actually do about this?
Exactly. And he doesn't say that he has all the answers,
Right.
but he does offer some concrete steps
Okay.
that parents, educators, policymakers can take
Right.
to address this.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Okay. Yeah.
We've gone over the arguments, the criticisms, the
Mhm.
reactions from readers,
Yep.
even Bill Gates' perspective.
The whole shebang.
So for someone who's on the fence about reading this book,
Yeah.
what would you say to them to kind of convince them to give it a shot?
I would say that this book is worth your time.
Okay.
If you're at all concerned about the impact of technology on kids,
Yeah.
it's definitely a wake-up call, but it's also like a guidebook
Yeah.
for navigating this new digital world.
So it's not just fear-mongering.
No,
It's actually giving people tools
it's
to
empowering
deal with this.
people to take action.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for diving into this with me.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
And for our listeners, if you want to learn more about this topic,
Definitely check out the book.
we highly recommend checking out The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt.
Yeah.
It'll make you think.
It'll
expand your understanding,
absolutely.
and it might spark some important conversations
Important conversations.
in your own life.
Yes.
So until next time, keep diving.